Welcome to the Human Happy Hour. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Jason Lorber. He is a consultant, a comedian, a former politician from Burlington, Vermont. Jason has served in the Vermont House of Representatives from 2005 to 2013, focusing on prison reform, among many other issues. And his company, Aplomb Consulting, facilitates change. He's also a stand-up comedian who opened for Joan Rivers, which for the young people listening, and does that imply that we're old people? I don't like to think of it. Are we? But if you don't know who Joan Rivers is, she used to be a really, really big deal. So she's one of the pioneers of comedy, right?
Yeah.
So basically we're saying that's a pretty cool thing. So welcome, Jason, and we're so glad to have you here with us.
Well, thanks. It's great to be had.
Sorry, I should probably tell anyone that's watching this. I know Jason really well, so everything he says is funny to me.
It's okay to laugh at a comedian. It really is. Yes.
But that wasn't meant to be funny.
I've done shows before, and people are like, "Oh my god, it was so funny!" I was like, I had to keep myself from laughing. I'm like, "Why did you do that?" What? That's not
a thing.
That's weird. At a show, it's not like you're laughing at somebody, that they're not trying to be funny.
Maybe he wasn't doing a comedy show.
Oh, it was a funeral. That's the thing. Maybe that was it.
I was trying not to laugh. What's the rose? Yes, I know. I see the Vermont. I get that one, but what's that? Yep.
This is Bread and Puppet.
Oh,
a
okay.
Vermont thing, but I just also like to have positivity and a pretty flower.
Nice. All right, cool.
Yes.
All right. So you should probably know how I know Jason. We met at acting class, which is oh god, that was forever ago.
It was forever ago.
Did we ever do a scene together? Yeah, of course we did.
Of course we did.
I have a bad memory.
But I don't remember.
Yeah, I have no idea what it was.
It must have been great.
I know. It was wonderful.
Since neither of you remember it, it was fantastic.
You were wonderful. I remember that.
A deep impression on me. Wow, that's so funny. Well, it was a while ago. It was over 15 years ago.
Yeah. I don't remember any scenes that I did, actually, to be honest.
Actually, I don't remember anything from 15 years ago. So
not in the least.
No.
Awesome.
I had to look you up.
Yeah, Jason asked me, he goes, this isn't like a setup or anything. You're not going to try to make me look like a fool or anything. I'm like, no. Well, because he knows I would goof around with him, but no, it's legit. But I would like to know, one of the first questions is, what inspired you to become a stand-up comedian? And what was the first experience like performing on stage?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd always been an actor as a kid. And when I went to graduate school, I didn't have time to be in a play or a show. And people have been telling me that I was funny, so I should do some stand-up. I'm like, no. But I really missed the stage, so I decided to do it. And the cool thing about stand-up is when you're just starting off, you just go to an open mic and you do 3 to 5 minutes. That's it. And there's no rehearsal with other people, so you don't have to schedule it. So that was really easy to fit that in. And yeah, the first time went really well because as an actor, I already have the stage presence down, and so it was super fun. And the first time I went, I was pretty good, and then the second time I was a little bit better, and then the third time I was a lot better, and then the fourth time I bombed, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. And it took me about a year to get back into it because I was like,
oh wow.
When you bomb at stand-up comedy, and that only happens to people who are stand-up comics. So all stand-up comics bomb. And hopefully it's not that frequent, but it's the worst. It's horrible.
I bet. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what I think what keeps people from trying it. Is the fear of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen out here because I'm in LA. And so you see like the way that people are slated, and some people are obviously a lot more seasoned than others. And I've seen people like bomb and then like you think that they're having a breakdown, and then you start to just feel really bad for them. And you're like, I'm sorry this is happening to you right now. But yeah, it's interesting, but I have heard that
opposite of the feeling you should have at a comedy show. Pity and
Yes.
sorrow.
Yes. That's when you learn, like at a certain point, it's time to leave. Like, because then you feel bad and you don't want to walk out on the person that's like bombing and having
Oh
a
my
mental
God.
breakdown. And so,
You could have tried laughing. Just start laughing hysterically.
but
Yeah,
that's
but-
hard to fake if you're not a performer, right? Like I feel like for a regular person, that's hard to fake.
Yeah, of course. I know.
Plus, if it's not a joke and you're laughing, that's something.
Yeah. Well, it happens to me all the time. Wow. Yeah, people keep telling me that I should be in stand-up, and I know you're going to say something funny right now, but I, but
Was that what I was going to say?
I don't know actually, but
Okay,
um,
dying to know.
but I'm petrified. I think you were going to say no, you shouldn't with a straight face like that. That's what I think you were going to do.
Well, we'll never know now.
No, we will not.
No.
But yeah, I'm paranoid because yeah, it's just like I don't know. I don't feel like it's safety. It's not safe for me. I don't mind singing. But
Right. You're a wonderful singer.
Thank you. But I don't want to go up there and try to do an act or show or anything.
Yeah. It's not a safe place to
It's
be.
not a safe place.
It's like the opposite. It is.
Yeah.
Do you, Jason, do you write your act and put together something, or do you just kind of go up there and riff when you do your stand-up?
So a little bit of both. But that makes me think of when I opened for Joan Rivers, and so she came to Vermont, and she had this big contest for all the comics who wanted to open for her, and so she had all these rules. She's like, okay, first it can't be a woman, it has to be a guy. It has to, you can't swear or have any sexual references, because by contrast, she wanted to be the one to bring it. And so all the guys, we put together our best tapes and we sent them to her. And then her people picked me. Which was very exciting. But then I found out, I'm like, so how, who are her people? They're like, no, she picked you. I'm like, really? That's cool. So I was all excited. And then it's like, okay. And I was told I get 8 minutes. And when you're told you have 8 minutes for stand-up comedy, that doesn't mean 8.5. That doesn't mean 8 minutes and 10 seconds. It's 8 minutes. Because if you go over, then people know, oh, they're not reliable, and because you're taking away from other people's times. So I like took all my jokes and I had to like switch them around. So my best 8 minutes, I'm going to showcase my best 8 minutes. And so things were out of order and how I usually do them. And it's not like a strict order, but I was like trying to put everything together. So I got that down and I practiced, and I even did some visualization. So I imagined myself on the stage. This is at the Flynn, it seats 1,400 people. And I'm like, okay. And I'm going to like, come over here. And I'm going to go over there. And I had it all pictured in my mind. And so the day comes and Joan Rivers shows up. And it's like, oh my God, Joan Rivers. And she walks in and she is like a huge presence. And she walks in, she's like, hello. And she comes onto the stage and she says, is that light going to be on over there? And the people at the Flynn are like, oh, we can turn it off. And she goes, no, I didn't say turn it off. I said, is it going to be on? I just need to know. Is it on or is it off? Just let me know. And so I'm prepared. And they said, well, normally we keep it on. She goes, okay, the light's on. Okay, then it's going to be over here. She goes, Jason, there's going to be a band here. They're going to play a song. What's to usher you on? What song do you want? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, what do you mean you don't know? Come on, you've been thinking about this. And I'm like, I never had a band open for me. So she said, Black Eyed Peas. He'll do Black Eyed Peas. You like Black Eyed Peas? And I'm like, yeah. So, you know that song, I got a feeling that tonight's going to be the first night or best night or something. Yeah. So that song. So she's like, okay. And then she talks to me for a little bit and she's like, and you can have 10 minutes. And I'm like, great. Oh my God, I have 10 minutes. So now all my jokes are like cut in pieces. And I'm like, okay, how's this gonna work? And so I figure out and I like have it down. And then and she can see that I'm like my head's just exploding. And she says, Jason, don't worry. You have nothing to be nervous about. Everyone's here to see me. No one's here to see you. I'm like, thank you for the pep talk. And so a few hours later, you know, I got a feeling and I come up on stage and I'm supposed to cut off the band. And I like jump up and I go, boom, like that, like a rock star. And it was just so cool. And then the band stopped and it was so exciting. And the audience was laughing at every single joke, every little throwaway, everything got a laugh. And you know, I come over here and they make a laugh, come over here, and then I was like in the middle of my routine, and I'm like, and I was so confused because my jokes are all out of order. I just added some stuff in, and I started telling this joke, and I said, have I already told this joke? The audience shouts out, yes. And I'm like, okay, moving on. And I do the rest of the set, and it's great. People say, Joan Rivers, after she does her set, which she was amazing, she's like, Jason, you were very funny. And I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, Joan Rivers just said I was funny. And I'm like, oh, I bet she says that to everyone. I'm like, this is Joan Rivers. She does not blow smoke. And then someone from the Flynn said, Jason, we saw Joan, and she said that she was laughing during your set. And I was like, yes. So it was very exciting. But then a friend of mine came up to me and he said, so Jason, did you wing it? Which was like both the biggest compliment and the biggest insult all in one. Like, did I wing it? I opened for Joan Rivers. Yeah, I winged it. And he said, I could tell that you were just making it up on the spot, except for that one time. And I said, what? Which one time? He says, when you repeated the joke. I knew that was planned. Like, all right.
that person has got their finger on the pulse of your show for sure.
But that's a lot of what comedy is about. It's about rehearsing over and over so that it seems like, oh, and I just thought of something.
Yeah, that's a really cool story, and I feel like
and some of it's true.
I feel like that comment that Joan Rivers said, like if somebody had said that to me, don't worry, they're here to see me, like that actually would have relaxed me, because I'd be like, yeah, you know what, it is fine, like I'll just do what I can do. I'm not the main attraction. That's cool.
Yeah, except you're not performing. If you're there to perform, you want people. I mean, it's one thing if it's like, oh, you're writing this memo, don't worry about it. They're going to look at the other stuff. It's like, no, this is about.
Yeah, and the 10 minutes would have given me a heart attack. I was like, oh my God,
yeah.
Just add 2 more minutes.
Add 2 more minutes. Yeah.
So you were able to just fill that. Like I'm guessing you had to ad lib there, right? If you had planned for the 8.
Oh no! I had a few hours in between from when she told me and when I went on.
Oh, okay.
So, so I practiced that. but that's also hard because if you're practicing over and over again. Sorry, phone's going off. But yeah, it is hard. Like, I know I said this like 7 times today when I was rehearsing. Did I actually say this. I can't believe I repeated a joke during this.
Apparently it worked though.
Worked.
People probably, yeah, it's how you handle the accidents really. Same thing with singing. If you, I waited, I couldn't remember the lyrics for like almost a minute to a song, and my band wouldn't give me a break. They just kept playing the riff over and over, and I just thought it was hilarious. And then I asked somebody in the audience to give me the words, and they looked up the wrong AC/DC song. I was like, no, that's the wrong one. then somebody else, and I was like, and I sang it, and everybody went nuts because I wasn't panicking. I made it into fun, and that's what you did. That's great. Yeah, that's hard. You have to be comfortable.
That's one of my favorite things, because I do acting, I do improv, and stand-up comedy, and by far comedy is the hardest. But improv is it's just so wonderful because you just make whatever up, or you get stuff thrown at you, and then you have to kind of make it make sense. And then also the audience knows that you're doing that. So I'll do a lot of crowd work, and I'll like talk to the audience. I'll say, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'll try and engage them in a conversation. And that's just super fun. But then it's also a low bar, because if I say anything, the audience is like, "Oh my God, what's he gonna say?" Because they know that I couldn't have prepared, because I'm just talking to someone. So,
wow. So who are some of your favorite comedians, and how do they influence you?
well, I love watching Paula Poundstone. She does a ton of crowd work, and she's, I saw her at the Flynn several times actually, and she like in an hour and a half show, or maybe it's 2 hours, I don't know. She'll do like a half an hour of just crowd work. Which is pretty amazing. I love Ellen DeGeneres, just kind of her random nature about her. I like Jon Stewart. He's very smart and witty, and has content. And also Ellen does as well. Yeah, those three stand out to me.
Nice. Do they influence you at all, or?
Yeah, I would say that Ellen did, and I'd say just in general, when I want to be inspired, and this is whether it's comedy or for my business. Like I was just having a conversation today with a friend, my best friend growing up, and we were friends since 7th grade. And just like hearing someone's ideas, and maybe that's kind of the improv in me, is just like, oh, that's going on in your life. How can I apply that to something that I do? And how can I think about that? And so when I see a comedian, it's just like, wow, they did a really good job of that thing. I want to try to do that. Yeah.
Nice. Is there a difference in style? I guess I noticed like some comedians tend to really talk about their life, and it's more like stories, and then others seem to have more jokes. I guess, is that like, so what is your style there?
I'm definitely more, well, one, what I'm going for is funny. That's my brand of humor. So doesn't always work out that way. And I would say I'm definitely tell about my life. My mom, after every show I do, she'll say, did you, was I in your act? And, if I say, of course you were in my act, she'll be like, oh God, oh no, what did you say? But then if she's not in my act, she'll be like, what, you didn't include me in your act? So now I can tell her that, okay, Mom, you're in the podcast.
Nice.
So that's good. Yeah, so, but I mean, just like, any sort of writing, you should always write what you know. And, for writing, obviously, you can also do research. And so it doesn't have to just be that. But what we're looking for I mean, what I like to see is, I want to see something that's true and that's real. And so,
Yeah, I saw George Carlin at the Memorial Auditorium, and he was practicing for his real shows. And he brought up, I mean, he was still funny, but he had a stool with all his notes on the stool. And so he'd be like, hold on a second. And he'd be like, oh, another thing about.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. We're still funny, but thanks for being prepared for Burlington.
Yeah. Well, Joan did that. She had notes that were like this big. So like 200 point font lettering. And she like had them lined up on the stage.
Oh, wow.
But she was in her 70s when she was performing. And she started when she was in her 20s. I mean, the woman was amazing. And the first, I mean, maybe, I don't know if Mae West did stand up, but Joan was such a pioneer. She's amazing. But yeah, a lot of comics will have notes. I try not to have them because then I'll use them. And then it ruins my flow. But yeah, I usually don't have notes. And I've done like one man 60, 70-minute shows. And I can do that. So
Nice. So we mentioned we've got a lot of stuff in your bio, so I want to try to get some of these other topics in here. And
we're not done.
Halfway.
Yeah. That's why I was like, maybe we should switch topics. Yeah. So let's talk about politics and your time in office. So what inspired you to run for office, and then what made you decide to leave politics?
Yeah, well, I ran for office, and it just, just personal thing for what was important to me. I ran because I wanted to spend less time with my family. And I mean, and my slogan was a stand-up comedian who stands up for us. But no, I've always wanted to do public service, and actually one of the main reasons in the far back of my mind, well, no, it wasn't far back in my mind. It was about marriage equality, that I wanted to work on that. But I say it's far back in my mind because like, yeah, right, like that's ever going to happen in my lifetime. And said, well, but I'm sure there's lots of other good things I could do. And when you're first running for office, you don't really get to pick what issues you get to work on. You go into the legislature and you're put on a committee, or other issues come up. Sometimes you could try to do things. Also, when I ran healthcare, was a big issue that I wanted to work on. But as it worked out in the legislature, my district mate, which is just someone else who served with me from the same area of Burlington, was leading the healthcare debate, and he was the chair of the healthcare committee. So I wasn't even, it wasn't even a consideration that I would get to serve on that committee. But I went to the legislature, and there's a lot of bills that I got to have an influence on, which was amazing. And to be able to say, I killed that bill, or I wrote that bill. But all politics it's a team sport. There's no one person that does anything all by themselves, even a governor or a president. You need to pass it through legislation and whatnot. But I did get to work on some really cool prison reform and finding ways to save money and increase safety. And part of that was around finding ways to reserve prisons for people that we're scared of, not people that we're mad at. and also, just bringing in experts and finding alternatives to prison that are actually more effective at reducing crime and cost less. And as a society, we overuse prisons. The United States is off the charts when it comes to putting people in prison, and we don't get good results from it. But we just feel like, oh, this'll work. But there have been studies that show that 4% of crimes result in someone being put in prison. And because, one, the person has to be caught, one, they have to be tried, one, they have to win the case, and then, then they can barter down or on their, and when you get to all of that, then, it's only 4%. So if we're putting people in prison, 4% of the time that crimes happen, that's a drop in the bucket about, is that really going to change things? And then you factor in, when people do go to prison, that who are they there with? Oh, other people who have committed offenses. So they're going to be learning from those people. That's going to be their cohort. And so it's a great training ground for criminal activity. And plus we're locking them up. We're telling them that they're useless. We're treating them unreasonably, as the way we would normally treat human beings. And then when we leave them out, we're like, all right, you're out on your own. Be successful.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we haven't treated, their drug problems or their mental health issues, which is a big proportion of who's in prison. Not to mention the incredible racism, and that people of color are so much more put in prison than white folks. And so it's just a losing proposition. It just doesn't work the way that we had intended it. So I did a lot of work on that, and I felt good about that. But I also got to work on marriage equality, and I got to have an impact on that. And that was really important to me, as well as working a lot on trans rights for transgender folks, to have non-discrimination policy, and also have gender-neutral bathrooms. And then I also did a lot of work on the economic front, and in creating benefit corporations, and raising the minimum wage, and doing a lot of other things. So it was a great experience. And then after 8 years, it was kind of time to move on. And so I decided not to seek re-election and come back to my business, which I absolutely love. But I do stay in touch with my friends and colleagues, and I also do a lot of work with this group called Emerge, which trains Democratic women to run for and win office. And so that also has a lot of meaning for me.
So that sounds like you were able to accomplish a lot. So were those just things that you worked on, or things that were actually passed and solidified? And like, what do you feel like was your biggest accomplishment, and what was the biggest challenge? Were there things that you mentioned that you worked on, but they didn't get over the threshold, or things didn't get passed or implemented the way that you would have liked?
I really appreciate that question, because it affords me the opportunity to think back. And there actually was a lot that I got to be a part of that became law. So everything that I mentioned became law. I also did a lot of work on marijuana deregulation. And while that didn't happen while I was in office, I was able to secure the promise that the next term it would be brought up. And indeed it was, and it was passed. And so marijuana was deregulated, or decriminalized, sorry, was decriminalized after I left, but I got to help set the stage for that. And again, lots of other people had worked on this issue, and lots of people brought this over the finish line. Like I mentioned with gender neutral bathrooms, I worked on that. I got that passed into law for some of the bathrooms in Vermont. And then a few years later, someone else made it for all establishments. And this is just for single stall bathrooms. They just are supposed to be called bathrooms so that anyone can use them. And so, yeah, so and like marriage equality, I mean, that was not my focus. I was not on that committee, but I got to tell my story and probably influence one of the key votes, and we won by one vote. So so being able to be a part of that was really powerful. And yeah, so I would say the meaningful things that I worked on got passed. And I mean, there's so many different battles and so many different bills. But yeah, I stuck my nose into areas that were really important to me, and I got to see them into law.
Yeah, and you got to get married.
And I got to get married. Well, that's and I actually have a YouTube. My speech on marriage equality was put on YouTube, and it got a lot of views. I think close to 10,000 views. One of the things I said in my speech was, I feel a little bit uneasy or awkward asking my colleagues for the right to marry the man that I love.
Oh my God, that's so true.
And what a lot of Republicans told me, they said, Jason, don't you think you're being a little dramatic? And I'm like, no, literally, I cannot marry him unless you vote yes. And they're like, wow.
That make me so sad. I'm
like crying. Seriously. How do you not get
pathetic.
This? Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think like because they viewed you as a colleague, like you were able to get them to actually make that leap, where I think a lot of times the people that think like that, it's an abstraction. They don't know anybody in that demographic. They just have not met enough people with enough lived experiences. And so they just think, oh, whatever they think, right? But that is a really great way that you were able to put that to frame it, to get them to kind of snap out of it and go, oh, wait a minute, like this is our colleague, this is somebody.
And I'd like to say that worked, but it didn't. It didn't. We won by one vote.
Yeah,
won by one vote. So a lot of the people would be like, well,
you do have to ask my permission. And the answer is no.
Well, they said, no, it's not that you need my permission. It's just that's the law. But who writes the law?
Yeah.
You do the math. Come on, work with me, people.
So annoying. Anyway,
yeah, but
so many politicians, they just don't get. You're like, yeah, you're the one that writes the law. Like you can fix this. You're the one that has the power. Stop paying it lip service.
And you have to, smile, and because you know that you're going to be working with them on other bills. So I'm going to need your vote on something else. But and people can be really petty. It's people say it's like high school, but then the insiders know, no, it's not like high school. It's like junior high school. And it's like, people, I once presented 2 amendments to a bill, and the person, and so the House passed 2 amendments. And so it went on to the bill, and then the Senate took up the bill, and they said, oh, we got two amendments from the House. And they said, what's the first one? It says, well, Lorber says it's a Lorber amendment, and he says blah, 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 blah. And they're like, all right, we'll agree to that amendment. What's the second amendment? Well, it's also from Lorber. He already got one. No. And they didn't even look at what it was.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like
that's
insane.
Wow. Yeah.
You already got one. That's enough to vote no on something.
Oh my God.
That's so depressing. It's so depressing. Like
it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
What if it was a really good one?
It was a good one.
I know, I'm sure it was. That's what I mean. It's like insane. You should have given it to someone else.
Yeah, I guess that's why sometimes I think they do that, right? They'll give it to somebody else, and maybe that's why. Is I
Wow.
feel like I would have been like, but wait a minute, can I pick? Like if I had a preference between the two.
Yeah. Never
Like,
mind the
wait-
first one.
Yeah, you're only gonna give me one.
Oh my God, that's nuts.
Well, that's something that the Speaker of the House, her name was Gay Symington, and she said to me, related to a different bill, she said, "Well, Jason, do you want the credit, or do you want to get this bill passed?" And I'm like, "Can't I have both?" Like, not usually. Not usually. Not until you've been here a long time, but you're new. So what's more important to you? And I'm like, I want it passed. Okay. So you get no credit for this. Like, all right.
Gosh, wow. That does
That
sound
makes
very middle school. Honestly.
Literally no
Yeah.
sense whatsoever.
Yeah, and that was a contributing factor for one. I'm like, all right, 8 years is enough. I mean, just putting
Yeah.
up with some of the small minds, it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
But
Wow. Oh my God, that blows my mind. I would
but it's also important work. So like I have to like stomach it with the like, oh wait, this is really important. This is going to impact people's lives. Okay, we can do this.
But also, I feel like out of all the people that I have either listened to or even talked to that enter that political realm, you're one of the very few that's like, this is going to impact people's lives. And that's how I'm going to think about it. I feel like that is very much not how they think about things.
I think it is. I know everyone likes to give politicians a hard time, and I guess I am as well. I think most people, the vast majority of people, are there because of a calling, because they want to help shape society. And
he's in Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont sounds
I would guess
wildly
also
different.
Public stage. But one thing, so I held a fundraiser my first year as a legislator, and I brought in a very prominent congressman from another state to come here, and I asked him for what advice he would have for me as a new politician, and he said, "Make sure that you reward your friends and that you punish your enemies." Like, damn.
Are you my friend?
And would you like a muffin? So it was like, and I saw that happen in the state house, that people in power would be like, I don't really care about this bill, but I'm going to say no because you disrespected me, so that you know that next time you need to kiss my ring.
Oh my
And
God.
it's like, oh God, ugh, yuck.
What in the hell?
But that's, and it's, it's true about the, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But I think the more power that you have, the more that people then do all those calculations and stuff, and it can be, but I got out after 8 years, so I'm like, okay. And because I found that I would sometimes do some of that stuff.
Well, you're smart. What did you think about that? Like, did you ever come up with like a plan? Like, if everyone just listened to me, I could get rid of this problem in politics. Is there a way, or is it just human nature for people to be awful?
No, I think it's human nature, and I think that the way the system is set up, that especially when we concentrate power by not by merit, but by like how long you've been in office. That's what happens a lot. And And so there's almost not an incentive to be I don't know.
Cause a
It's a
ruckus.
bigger question. It's a bigger question.
It's not. There's no incentive to cause a ruckus, as AOC said.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, they don't. Yeah.
They don't want a ruckus.
Sometimes I got some legislation passed as a freshman, or first year legislator, and that's fairly unusual to like get your way when you don't have any power. But I figured out some ways of maneuvering the system, and someone said to me, "Oh, Jason, you got your bill passed, but you did it the wrong way." I'm like, but I think I think the evaluation should be on, did the measure get passed? I mean, I didn't do anything illegal, unethical, or mean. I just didn't kiss the right the right rings.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I couldn't do that, man. That's amazing.
yeah, so I'm like, okay, I can take that criticism. You're right. I did it the wrong way. Oh, that's horrible.
Now,
Anyway.
you bring any of this into your stand-up? Because I mean, it's like clearly it's material.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do some talk about politics, but it's mostly the more lighthearted stuff.
Nice.
I think so much about it though is just, and having attended city council meetings and in my area, so much of it is just not democratic at all. And you just see how people have no voice, and like it sounds like it's all of this middle school playing that they do behind the scenes, and actual people that have actual problems aren't really having a voice in that or getting their problems addressed. And that's why it takes things forever to get kicked around and nothing really happens. And then they have a ceremony and celebrate themselves and go, look what we did. And we're like, did you? Because it still looks about the same from where we're sitting, the people that don't have the power.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't want it to be like this total downer though, because we did get amazing legislation passed, and so I will tell this story about when I was there. There was this amendment. So the Boy Scouts of America, and I think they've changed their policies, but they used to be very homophobic. And also that they treated gay boys and men and atheists very bad. Like you're not allowed to be a Boy Scout or a Scoutmaster if you were gay or atheist. And I had some issues with that. and supposedly the Vermont chapter was much better. That it was a very much a don't ask, don't tell policy. But they knew about gay people, but they're like, no, but we're going to look the other way and it's okay. Just don't talk. And I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. And so every year they would have this resolution honoring the scouts who had made it through, not the organization, but the scouts. And I'm like, I really don't want to sign on to that. And people would be like, no, it's okay. It's okay. We've got one of the gay leaders and he's signing it. And then other people are signing it who also really support gay rights. And I'm like, well, good, but I'm not going to do that. And I also didn't want to be branded as the gay legislator or a gay legislator. I mean, I was out, but I was, I wanted to be taken seriously on a lot of different issues. And so I could do my work. And so they would pass it over time. And then one of my district mates, Rachel Weston, when she served in the House, the first year, she's like, oh, Jason, there's this Boy Scout resolution. Should I sign it? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to sign it, but you can sign it if you want. And she's like, no, I'm not going to sign this. This is wrong. And she was straight, but she was a big ally. And she's like, I'm not going to sign it. And then she told some other people, and other people didn't sign it. And without enough signatures, it didn't go through. And then, so that was a minor victory. I didn't want to take anything away from these kids who would like, oh, they earned their Eagle Scout, or they, gone through Boy Scouts to celebrate them. But I'm like, but I don't think as a state we should be celebrating people who go through a homophobic organization.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things to celebrate. That's just not one of them that I want us to actively celebrate. And then one year, this bill came across my desk, and there's so many bills. I mean, there are hundreds of bills. There's like 800 bills in any given year.
Wow.
So it's hard to like pay attention to everything that's going on. And it had gone on someone else's committee, and the committee looked at it. It was from the Transportation Committee, and it was about license plates. And they looked at this issue, and then they brought it out onto the floor for all of us to vote on. And usually it's like, okay, I went through the Transportation Committee, they're fine with it, we're fine with it, it was bipartisan, whatever. So I look at the thing, and I'm like, wait, it's called the Boy Scouts, what did I say, license plate frame bill. And I'm like, what's that about? And so they reported on the bill, which means they just talk about it, and they say, this is the bill. It's actually not, we changed the name. It's not about the Boy Scouts. This is just about how you get designated to be one of the, on your license plate frame, there can be like something that says celebrating the Boy Scouts or whatever.
Right.
And so they said, it's just a process for an organization to get to be celebrated. And I'm like, huh. So the speaker says, all right, so that's the bill. Any questions? All right, let's have a vote for it. And I stand up, and the speaker looks at me, and he's like, representative from Burlington. And he doesn't like it when I spoke a lot of times. And so I'm like, what is it about me? But it's obviously something about me, but whatever. So I get up and I say, so I'm just looking at this bill, and so this says that anyone can apply to have this license plate frame. And they say, well, actually, there can only be 2 at any one time, because it's difficult for the police patrol if there's too many different types of license plates. So they want to limit it to 2 a year. I said, okay, and so how will it be designated who gets to be the 2? And they said, well, we have a waiting list, and whoever's on the top of the list, as long as they're a nonprofit. And I said, so who's on the top of the list? They said, well, it happens to be the Boy Scouts. But this isn't about the Boy Scouts, this is about the process. I said, okay, so any nonprofit can be designated this way without any other stipulations, just any nonprofit. And they said, yes. I said, okay. And I was out of questions. I'm like, I don't know how to stop this. But the Boy Scouts are number one, and then there's gonna be another organization, and then no one else is gonna be able to do this for like 2 years. And I'm gonna be driving around the roads seeing Boy Scouts everywhere. And so we vote on the bill, and the bill passes, but Vermont has this rule of we have to sleep on it, and then the next day we vote on it again.
Oh.
So it happened to fall over town meeting break. So we had a week off. And I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to stop this? And so they're like, oh, I have an amendment. And they're like, what is your amendment? I said, my amendment is that for this bill, any nonprofit that wants to have this honor just needs to abide by Vermont's non-discrimination policy.
Smart.
And So the amendment goes up to the Transportation Committee. The Transportation Committee calls me in and says, Representative Lorber, tell us about this. I said, no, it's just, it's just a policy. We have a non-discrimination policy, so we want to make sure like the KKK, which is a nonprofit, couldn't also have license plate frames. So we just want to make sure that
this is not about the Boy Scouts.
Well, that's what they said. So the chair said, okay, turn off the recorder. Jason, I just want to ask you this question. And I'm like, okay, you're not allowed to turn off the recorder.
But rough you
other
up.
than saying that, it's like, you have to turn the recorder on. Yeah, no, we're not going to turn on the recorder for this. I just want to ask you a question. Is this about the Boy Scouts? And I said, oh, no, this is about the policy.
Yay.
And they never took up my amendment, which means they never took up the bill, so it didn't happen.
Nice.
Well played. Well played.
The first thing I thought of when you said, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, does that mean like Satan worshipers could get their own license plate camera? I mean, I don't have a problem with that, by the way. I'm just saying.
Right. It would have made more sense for them to say, no, we're just calling it for the Boy Scouts. We're just letting the Boy Scouts do it. And then I would have to like battle the Boy Scouts. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No.
But I do want to uphold non-discrimination policies.
Oh my God. It's really close to the end. So we're going to go a little over because we want to talk about your business.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's my business.
Well, your business is my business. First of all, please explain the name. Someone did to me and I forgot it.
Okay. So Aplomb Consulting, and some people say Aplomb, I say Aplomb, like the fruit Aplomb. And what we do is we facilitate change. And so I work with nonprofits, businesses, government agencies, with the belief that every one of us and every organization has these superpowers and this core competency of what makes us shine as people and as companies. And being able to tap into that can make us even more powerful. But I also have a theory of change that the only person you can change is yourself. And so what does that mean if you're a leader of an organization or you're a leader of a team and you realize the skills that got us here to where we are not what we need moving forward. We need to change what we're doing or how we're doing it. How do you get people to change when the only person you can change is yourself? And the answer is that leaders set vision and direction of their organization. And hopefully they do so with input from everyone that works with them. Because one, the other people might have better ideas than the CEO, but also because we want them to have buy-in. And so that when the vision is set and you're saying, we're going to go over here, not over here, we're going over here, and more specifically right there. So everyone here, I want you to design the change that you're going to be in charge of that will get us to that point. And when people design their own change, then they're more likely to understand it and also to implement it. And so that's what I do is my vision is that all employees and all board members are fully engaged to create change. And my mission is to help leaders empower their teams. And the tools I use are strategic planning, team building, communications, executive coaching, and mediation. And I've been doing that for quite some time, and I love my work. It's really great to be able to lift people up and to empower them so that they're successful.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really unique. I mean, it's got aspects of different strategies that I've heard before. Like, I'm not a big fan of consensus when you have too many people. I think there should be a vision. If you have like with our show, we have a consensus, but there's few of us and we all kind of are like-minded. But if you have like 30 people, it's hard to get a consensus and have a business actually have a path. I like that. You have like a consensus with a leader.
Well, it's not a true consensus. I mean, what I said was if you have input from people, I didn't say decision-making from them. So they can say, okay, I got to give my 2 cents, And whether it's a majority or even a dictator decision,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I listened to everyone. This is the direction we're going in.
Right.
Then it gives people the opportunity to say, okay, well, I got to help shape that. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I can live with it. And
Yeah.
if I can't live with it, it's clear where we're going. I wanted to go over here. The leader wants to go over there. I'm out of here. I can get another job. Or I know that if I stay here, I'm going to be judged on this. So I'm going to get behind it.
I like it a lot. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I very much buy into that. So I lead teams in my regular job, and I just find it to be so much easier if you are the leader to just work with your team instead of, because who wants the pressure of like, I'm not right all the time. I don't want to decide everything. I want to talk with my team, work with my team, listen to them.
Right.
And then we always come up with better stuff. And so I feel like that's the path of least resistance. It's just a lot easier. The team enjoys it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you do see a lot of these leaders that like, they just think that they have to control everything and dictate and they know everything. And I'm just like, that's so exhausting. Like, but why? Just work with your team. And if you've hired good people that you trust to do the work, then you'll get the right result together.
Yeah. And for people that say, well, yes and no, because I don't truly trust my team or I have concerns about them, so I just need to tell them what to do, then I'd say maybe you're sweeping under the rug the problem that you have the wrong people in place.
Mm-hmm.
And until you address that, it's yeah, do you want to always be the person that's managing versus leading? That's micromanaging and saying, this is what you do, this is how you do it, as opposed to, I don't know how we're going to get there, but this is where we're headed. And I've hired some amazing people. So, you know, I'm not giving you free reign. I'm saying you still need to check in, and I want you to bounce ideas by me. I want you to meet specific, you know, KPIs, key performance indicators, to know that we're making progress. And if something's wrong, I can step in. But I want you to own that. I want you to, you know, it's a difference between saying, I want this by Thursday, and saying, when can you get that to me? And if you say Wednesday, I'd be like, great. If you say Thursday, I say, great. If you say Friday, I'm like, what can we do to make that happen sooner? Because I need it by Thursday.
Yeah, that sounds delightful. It really does. Yeah.
Well, it's great. And so a lot of my work is, you know, it's using a coaching mindset. I'm doing some amazing work with VBSR, which is the Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility. And we have, through them, the VBSR CEO Solidarity Circle, where I'm working with 21 CEOs from across Vermont, all the way from 7th Gen and Sun Common to some very new companies. And it also includes some nonprofits as well. And all the CEOs get to learn from each other and form relationships, and also to role play. Well, what would you have done in this situation? And are you dealing with imposter syndrome? Because I sure am. And how do we think as leaders, and what does social responsibility have to do with our journey as an organization and for me as a leader? And so I get to lead this group, and it's been very powerful. And that's a 6-month program, and we have another cohort that's starting up this fall. So that's exciting.
Wow.
And that's just some of the fun work I get to do.
Oh, it's so interesting. I always wondered, and I just never asked, obviously, but I always wondered what your business was, and that sounds super fascinating. And you have such a great personality for that. I mean, it must be fun. It must be fun in those meetings. I'm just gonna say it. I bet it's fun.
Well, thank you, Jason. And one of the things that I've been trying to do more and more of is to bring my authentic self. And one of my superpowers is I'm a performer. You know, I'm a stand-up comedian. And so I'm starting to do more and more of that in my business life. And what I used to do even when I was a legislator and when I first started out in business, I was like, okay, I want people to take me seriously, so I'm not going to be funny. And I would actually get that comment. There'd be like a bill that I was presenting when I was in the legislature, and I would study for it. And I would like learn everything I needed to know, and then I would present it, and then I would ask a colleague afterwards, so how'd I do? And they said, you weren't very funny. Like, well, I guess that is, part of what I'm going for. And that's what people's expectations are of me. And so I'm trying to bring that more and more into my practice. And then the clients love it. They just love. And I'm like, really? You want me to be silly and funny? And
yes.
Not too silly, not too funny. No. We have work to do, but there's no reason why we can't have fun with it. And frankly, when we're having more fun, that makes us more effective. And all the studies show that when employees feel more connected to their coworkers, and not just, I know what job they have, but also I know about their kids and I know about their hobbies. And sometimes, we go on a run together or what have you. And the more that they're connected, the more that they're connected to the company. And so that their tenure is longer, their engagement levels are longer, their productivity is higher. And so that it's not just, let's just have morale high for fun, because it just makes it more enjoyable. It also makes it more effective.
I want to be respectful of your time. I have one more question, unless you have something.
You really don't want to be respectful.
No, this one's important.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Rena?
No, I think that this has been really interesting, because we've had several chapters that we've gone through, and that's been really neat to kind of unpack and see how sounds like they all converge with your business. So it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
So last question is something everybody gets this question.
Do we want a drum roll for this?
Sure. Are you a drummer?
No, I'm not.
I'm not a drummer. I can lower my voice, but
yeah. I'm almost done. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So look, there's a blurry cat.
Here's Dennis, right on schedule.
Yeah, he always knows when it's over.
I can't.
I know you're really not talking to anyone, Jason.
No, Roxanne likes to
have that handy.
Interviews sometimes, and
this is exactly where my question's leading. Actually, it's a perfect segue.
Right. Yes. What's your question?
Okay, it's a hypothetical.
That was Roxanne.
Roxanne.
Yeah.
No. No, we don't do that. It's a hypothetical. You're where you are right now, okay? And through the door, someone that looks exactly like you, even the same clothes, except you're more disheveled, and maybe some rips in the clothing, maybe a little bit of a sign of a struggle, possibly roughed up a little bit. And he runs over to you and he says, "Come with me. I'm from the future." What do you do?
I go with him. I ask him if he's okay.
Are you all right?
You all right?
No, I'm not all right. Look at me.
Right. What a random question, Jason.
Yeah.
But I'd go with it.
Nice. We've got a lot of weird answers. That's not always yes. One person said he would try to sleep with him.
Yeah, that was
that was wrong.
That's later, but now that's part of the plan. No, I don't think I would want to. No.
You know you'd want to. I know you. It's your life.
I know what I'm like.
I know. It's just
Wow.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that's great. I had so much fun. It was way too short, like I thought.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Human Happy Hour. And we hope you had as much fun with Jason Lorber as we did. And apparently Dennis wants to talk because he's heading in my face. But if you enjoyed the video or listening, please hit that like button, thumbs up, subscribe, share it with friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And we are also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. You can see some behind the scenes updates. And if you really want to support us so we can keep interviewing guests that have fascinating stories, please consider becoming a Patreon member. And you will see probably more of Dennis.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.